Welcome to the myth of the human being. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for giving me a little bit of your time. My name is Alex Urbita, and this is much more than a podcast. For me, this project is a travel journal, the record of a research journey that became a way of life. It's the logbook where I've been recording the progress of my exploratory journey, imagination, collaboration, and possibilities. I confess that when I started this journey, I didn't have a clear idea, a clear route of where I was going to end up. I just felt a great restlessness, a question that kept echoing. How can we imagine different futures in a world that seems determined to repeat the same patterns? And so, little by little, without planning it, I became an explorer of the invisible, of our collective imagination. This is my way of opening this travel journal and sharing with all of you the discoveries, clues, reflections, and tools that I have gathered along the way. I am not a guru. I am not a coach. I am not a teacher. I am not here to teach, and I ask you to consider me as a fellow traveler, a researcher, a very curious and very committed facilitator with many, many questions. My wish is to share some lessons and tools that I have learned throughout my journey, hoping that they will help us in this time of transition we are living through, both in our inner worlds and in the external world. If I had to sum up everything I've learned in just 3 ideas, they would be these. The first would be that everything is connected. It sounds like a cliché, I know. But it stops being one when you start to see the invisible threads of our deep interconnectedness everywhere. For example, my own thinking. It's an ecosystem made up of all the books that challenged me, the talks that moved me, the researchers who expanded my awareness, the podcasts, the researchers who broadened my questions, the somatic practices that brought me back to myself, those who facilitated them, the land I live on, and even the frustrations of a system that constantly prioritizes productivity over life. The second is that my perceptions deeply impact what I can imagine and what I consider possible. This applies both on an individual level and on a collective level. If we never question our ways of seeing, being, and doing, it will be practically impossible to change our perceptions and, therefore, we won't be able to imagine new possibilities. We do not perceive reality as it truly is, but rather filter through our experiences, our emotions, our unhealed traumas, our expectations, and by culture and society. For example, a shadow at night may be perceived as a cat by someone who is calm, or as an intruder by someone who is afraid. As Immanuel Kant said, we do not see the world as it is, but as we are. The third reflection is that collective intelligence or wisdom will always be greater than that of any individual. More often than not, this happens when we are far more deeply invested in being right than we are in listening with curiosity to sincerely and fully comprehend the other person's unique point of view and perspective. By making a deliberate effort to access the collective wisdom of others who possess different perspectives from our own, break time equals 0.5s// who hold diverse points of view, we can significantly expand our perceptions. Break time equals 0.5s// and broaden what we consider to be possible. So, to sum up my 3 main lessons, break time equals 0.5s// first, we are deeply interconnected. Break time equals 0.5s// second, we live on and depend on the very same planet. Break time equals 0.5s// third, our perceptions shape our imaginations and what we consider possible. Break time equals 0.5s// and finally, collective intelligence will always be greater than that of any single individual. These 3 reflections led me to notice my ego. The feeling of separation, superiority, and arrogance that blinded me for many years. And I became aware that, if I so desire and make the effort, it is possible to change how I see and relate to other people and to the world. If I choose to, I can move toward ECO, to live with an awareness of our deep interconnectedness and interdependence. It's important and necessary to mention that modern culture has done a masterful job of convincing us that our inner world doesn't matter, or that it's a luxury. My research and experience have shown me quite the opposite. In fact, in the theory of systemic change, there is an emphasis on noticing our collective imaginaries or worldview, on noticing the ways we understand and relate to the world, and on noticing our assumptions. In short, our ways of seeing, being, and doing. Also, in systems thinking, the individual is the smallest part of a human system. Individual transformation is the most fertile ground we have for transitioning from systems of death to systems of life. I know that for some, this can be a very uncomfortable topic. I know it, and I have experienced it firsthand. We have been indoctrinated by the current system to always look outward, at appearances, at the material, the tangible, the measurable, the results. And my proposal is to broaden that perspective to include both worlds, our external world, but also our internal worlds. It's very important to emphasize that it is possible to unlearn, and for that, it's essential to reactivate curiosity, the willingness to embrace uncertainty, that space of not knowing, of not having all the answers. To unlearn means to let go of what is safe and familiar, to step out of our comfort zones and replace it with something new and unknown, accessible only in the learning zone where true change happens. For this, it is essential to go through the fear zone. Growth always comes after fear. The skills and behaviors that helped you get to where you are may prevent you from reaching where you want to be and from becoming who you want to be, both in your professional and personal life. So if my suggestion makes you uncomfortable or scares you, it's probably exactly what you need to grow. But it's always valid to say, this isn't for me, I'm not ready, no, thank you. It was precisely in that liminal space, between the external and the internal, where I often felt lost. The theory was fascinating, but how do you actually walk the path? How do you do that? How do you move from feeling separated by individualism, by competition, by the sense of separation, by that ego that controls and dominates, to feeling like part of a whole? To recognize that we share. That we share the same world, that we depend on the same water, the same air, that echo which regenerates and collaborates. So I began to imagine and design not from certainty, but from curiosity, humility, and experience. And that's how the proposal I called A Journey from Ego to Eco was born. For it, I created a prototype, a travel companion I called a toolbox backpack, which is part of what I want to share. It's not an instruction manual, rather, it's a map for individual and collective self-discovery for the journey of transition in this liminal era we're living through. In this proposal, I have compiled my years of personal work and self-knowledge, combined with research and exploration of these fascinating topics. Inside the backpack, there are 3 elements that are our travel companions. The first of these elements is a map, a conceptual map that doesn't take us to external places, but rather invites us to practice our curiosity, to look with interest at internal areas we usually don't explore. It's full of symbols, glyphs, images, and clues designed to spark your curiosity and help you understand in which part of the inner landscape you are, and how you are walking along this journey. The second ingredient in this toolkit backpack is the mapastales, which are the heart of this project. They are stations along the journey we are traveling, like those old postcards you collect from places you visited. And each of these postcards captures the essence of a stage of the journey. This journey is designed to be non-linear. And the other element we're considering in the toolkit backpack is an imaginative compass, with conceptual cardinal points that serve as guides to help us navigate the transition and provide context on the mapastale to see the places we're exploring. They are accompanied by powerful questions for you to reflect on individually, first through reflective writing. We do this with pen and paper and share the feelings and thoughts from our reflections together. We complement the integration through ecosomatic practice, which aims to bring reflection into the body. We seek to integrate what the station of the journey brought us, the questions we answered, to integrate them with the body and make space for what wants to emerge. If you'd like to explore the toolkit, you can download it. The complete document is available at imagneseoncolectiva.org. I'll leave a link in the episode notes and in the Ego to Eco section, where you can download it. This comprehensive toolkit also includes many helpful links, educational books, insightful articles, short videos, feature-length documentaries, and engaging podcasts that have truly inspired me throughout my journey. To continue your journey. Oh, and sentipenser is a word I'll be using a lot, and I borrowed it from Arturo Escobar. He is a Colombian researcher and academic, and it refers to a way of understanding the world that doesn't separate intellectual knowledge from emotional or bodily knowledge. It's a way of being in the world that recognizes the interdependence among human beings and with nature. And that values ancestral, local, and community knowledge. After 2 years of researching, reading, conversing, reflecting, and facilitating 2 collective imagination labs, I came to a very hopeful conclusion. We already have everything we need for this journey. We possess 3 essential and interconnected superpowers that form a tripod supporting our intentional capacity to co-imagine and co-create. They are quite rusty, buried under layers of noise, distraction, and numbness caused by modern culture. Since it's a tripod, if one leg fails, the other 2 collapse. So, the first leg of this tripod is imagination. This superpower has been silenced, ridiculed, and exiled from our educational systems by our materialist paradigm. And that's no coincidence. A people indoctrinated into obedience is easy to control. A people who imagine and collaborate challenge the status quo. When we recognize the true nature of imagination, we discover something obvious but usually overlooked. All systems, objects, and human creations were born from an act of imagination. Our collective imaginaries, the stories, symbols, and shared beliefs that shape how we perceive reality, are the invisible architecture of human societies and cultures. They define what we value, how we relate to one another, and how we relate to nature, and which futures we consider possible. These frameworks are not mere abstractions. They are not just ideas. They are forces that organize behavior, legitimize systems of power, and inspire collective action. And the uncomfortable question here is, how will the futures we long for take root if we do not pay attention to the soil where imagination germinates? It is hijacked by screens that steal our time and dopamine. The second leg of the tripod is the word. When I say word, I mean dialogue, listening, stories, narratives. Language made us human, and listening made us a community. As I explored this superpower, I realized it's not just about what we say, but how we listen. True listening is an act of creation. It is allowing the other to enter your inner universe and transform it. We have lost the rituals that cultivated this, the circles around the fire, the in-person, face-to-face interactions. Today, our hyper-accelerated era has turned dialogue into monologue. Screens deceive us with false connections. We have forgotten the ritual that sustained us. Every word gives rise to stories. Every story weaves narratives that structure new thinking and shape realities. But their true power, their real magic, is not just in naming objects, but in creating the symbolic worlds we inhabit. Stories are the water we swim in. They are the soul of human experience. They shape how we understand ourselves, how we relate to others, and how we navigate the world. More than just entertainment, they are fundamental tools for creating meaning, transmitting wisdom, and building collective identity. And here my question is, what local futures are we failing to create? Because we don't truly know how to listen. And the last, third leg of this tripod is collaboration. It is the fire where imagination and words are forged into reality. Within them lies our greatness. The alchemy that forged civilizations, scientific advances, and resilient cultures. Today, we must recognize the cost of modernity. It has fractured us mentally, physically, and emotionally. We live disconnected from our emotions, numbed by a compulsive pace, isolated in bubbles of individualism, distraction, and consumerism. Social networks, disguised as public squares, have eroded our presence and intensified our chronic disconnection from our bodies, our surroundings, and from each other. And here is a question I want to leave you with. How can we heal the social fabric damaged by individualism, pandemic isolation, and digital addiction that replaces real connections with simulations? For this inner pilgrimage, I offer participants the chance to try on regenerative lenses. Tools that help us to see, to name, and to embody. Emerging alternatives to the dominant paradigms of seeing, being, and doing. These tools are systems thinking, futures thinking, and ecosomatic practice. Systems thinking is a way of understanding reality that focuses on the interconnections and interdependencies among the parts that make up a whole. Instead of focusing solely on the individual parts, it centers on the relationships. It is a perspective that considers systems as a set of elements that interact with each other and form an integrated whole. To think about and approach the future in a way that goes beyond simple prediction or forecasting. It is about exploring various possible, probable, and preferable futures and recognizing that it is possible to identify them through signals, patterns, and trends happening today. And ecosomatic practice is an approach that treats people as a whole. What we think, feel, and believe directly affects our body and physical well-being. Somatic movement uses simple techniques such as paying attention to present movement, listening to the body, and observing the breath. These tools help us connect with our own internal and external abilities. In this way, we find stability and balance. My purpose with this project is very simple and at the same time very huge. It is to be a good ancestor by serving life. For me, this translates into a very concrete image that I want to share with you. Imagine for a moment the community, bioregion, or world you would like your loved ones, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren to live in 20 or 50 years from now. Now observe the gap between that image, that future, and the direction we feel things are heading today. What emotion does that gap produce? Don't name it, just feel it. Allow yourself to feel it, where we are heading. What would you say to your descendants when they ask you? And what did you do when you found out? What legacy of beauty, of resilient community, of healing stories would you like to leave them? That is why my intention with this project is to serve to create islands of coherence and collective imagination for possible local futures. To create communities of practice where we can remember and reconnect with our three superpowers together. To remember how to plant a community garden, how to resolve a conflict without violence, how to imagine the future collectively, and how we organize ourselves to make it a reality. I also seek to serve organizations and collectives that want to reimagine and reinvent themselves, who wish to transition from practices of individualism, control, and power over others to practices of collaboration, dialogue, generative listening, and collective power. I feel that our true power lies at the local level, to transition from systems of death to systems of life. Imagine your bioregion with dozens of islands of coherence. Picture an island in your mind, and now imagine those islands becoming interconnected. These islands are communities where we come together to practice dialogue, generative listening, where we engage in holistic imagination with our whole bodies, where we practice collaboration, where we bring our dreams of these local futures to life through prototypes. We start with small prototypes and gradually scale them up. We reconnect with our neighbors, with local producers, with neighborhood collectives, with the bioregion, where we recognize our responsibility for the well-being of future generations and the health of our bioregion. Now, imagine all those islands organizing themselves, interconnecting, collaborating to strengthen our bioregions, our local economies, where we cultivate and grow organic products without agrochemicals, where we protect our water resources, our rivers, our lakes, and springs, where we strengthen the social fabric, where we celebrate the community bonds we have formed, and the futures we are creating, where we recognize that if we change our perspectives and our perceptions and decide to work for it, we can create the local futures we long for. I know that maybe for some, or for many, this proposal might sound too naive or utopian. Cynicism, polarization, and apathy are more present now than ever in our modern culture, and they do not allow us to broaden our perspectives of what is possible. But I invite you to reflect. How have imagination, dialogue, and collaboration shaped all our civilizations, our cultures, our societies, our traditions, our rituals, our economies? Our material systems and structures were born from these three superpowers. Being good ancestors is not a distant goal. It is a practice that can only be formed in the present, here and now. And what can you expect from this journey? Well, probably the same as I have experienced, moments of wonderful clarity and moments of total confusion. Can you expect joy? You can also expect pain. We tend to avoid pain at all costs. It's valuable to recognize that pain is not a flaw in the system. It's a sign that internal ice is melting, those armors we've built up over the years. It's uncomfortable, I know, I've experienced it myself, but it's the prelude to transformation. Have I seen it in myself? Have I experienced it myself? And I've seen it in others. I've witnessed it in others. I know this approach isn't for everyone. So, who is all this for? Well, it's for the adventurers who dare to question their stories and their certainties, and who have the willingness to reflect on powerful questions. It's for those of us who are tired of relationships based on individualism, separation, and exploitation, on competition, on destruction. And we seek to transition to local systems based on collaboration, community, dialogue, abundance, and regeneration. It's for those of us who recognize that our systems are broken and no longer serve us, and we wish to collectively reimagine, starting from the local, other possible futures. It's for those of us who wish to be good ancestors. If this proposal resonates with you, you are already our travel companion, and there are many ways we can walk together. The simplest is to subscribe, give it a like, and share this podcast with someone you think needs it and is interested in this proposal. If you want to support us financially so that this project can keep growing, we would really appreciate it, and you can make a donation on our website imagnsconco.org. There's a link at the top there. And if this truly resonates with you, if it vibes with you, if you want to actively collaborate and you have skills in social media, facilitation, working with communities of practice, fundraising, foundations, promoting workshops, retreats, labs, or if you want to start a community of practice in your organization, neighborhood, or bioregion, write to me. This is something we do together, and every contribution counts. In the upcoming episodes, I'll share more stops along the journey, tools that I truly hope from the heart will help us navigate the uncertainty and these crazy times we're living through. And of course, I'll have conversations with other change agents who are already working to bring forth the new. Well then, thank you so much. Thank you for making it this far. Thank you for being part of this community, and I'll see you along the way. See you soon. Bye.